The horrific murder of Iryna Zaruska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte, North Carolina, has revealed a deep hypocrisy and two-tier standard in America. I went on to Jesse Watters' show to discuss it last night.
Winston Marshall is a former Mumford & Sons musician and host of the Winston Marshall Show. All right, Winston, they're calling her the white George Floyd. How do you feel about that?
Well, Jesse, I should first say, of course, this horrific murder of Iryna Zaruska, an innocent 23-year-old refugee. For me, just putting aside, if we can for one moment, just how horrible it was watching that video. For me, a secondary horror is that I'm witnessing a two-tier America. It seems to me, without question, had the perpetrator been a white male of the same victim, we'd have been told, oh, look, America is systemically misogynistic, toxic masculinity. If it had been a white perpetrator with a black victim, we'd have been told America is systemically racist to the core. In fact, that has happened on several occasions. When this happens, what do we hear in response? Well, actually, it seems that most of the corporate media have been stumm about the thing. Now, if you take your mind back 5 years to George Floyd, within moments, the media was saying, oh, this is definitely racist. There was but some circumstantial evidence. I don't think barely circumstantial evidence that Derek Chauvin was actually racist, horrific as that video also was, and that killing also was, watching it. Here we see a different set of standards. And you mentioned DEI there. DEI is the same thing. It's two-tier. It's one rule for one group of people and another rule for another group of people. I say this coming from Britain. In Britain, we have had decades of two-tier system, and there are terrible consequences. First of all, there are more victims. If you don't punish these people, if they are not incarcerated and properly dealt with, if they don't meet the heavy hand of the law, they commit offenses again. Secondly, and now this is what we're seeing in Britain, every weekend, almost every day, is protests. People have had enough. If people feel that the system is treating one group differently to another, they don't resent the system, they resent the other group.
Yeah, we don't want it to get to that point, but it is getting to that point because DEI is actually causing people to die. And now we know that for a fact. The also difference between what we saw with Floyd is the media had the Floyd video on loop. Mm-hmm. We're editing this thing because we don't want to show this woman getting stabbed. We're not going to show her die. We're not going to play it over and over and over again to drum up racial resentment in order to win an election, because that's what happened last time. We're trying to be careful because this does make people very emotional. When you see these judges let these guys go, it doesn't even really matter if it's black or white, just let these guys go. 14 arrests, 30 arrests. Why are they doing that?
Yes, you've got to look at the ideology motivating these people. We've seen this now. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, mentioned cashless bail. There's other examples, I think, of San Francisco. I've witnessed that city fall into terrible state because district attorneys have said, oh, we need to prioritize rehabilitation rather than incarceration. The progressive ideology doesn't understand human incentive. You have to have disincentives, otherwise people offend again. Now, you could talk about rehabilitation. You could talk even about state rehabilitation, but there has to be proper punishment first.
They will argue that punishment is mean and that people deserve second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth chances because they're impoverished or they're the victims of systemic racism. That's why they're giving all these people a get-out-of-jail-free card, because they believe the perpetrators are actually the victims of society.
They do believe that, and not punishing them is suicidal empathy.
Right.
They will offend again. Now, as I say, we can talk about rehabilitation, but you have to have a proper structure to punish these people.
You can do both.
You can do both. I don't see why not.
So, will this change anything? You know, you look at Floyd, that changed the whole country for the worse. For many, many years, we're still dealing with the repercussions. Something like this, as graphic and as terrible as this is, it is getting a lot of attention. Will we see change as a result of this?
Well, it might encourage, we're seeing Trump already, what he's done in D.C., bringing in, is it the National Guard in D.C.? He's talking about bringing in the army into South Chicago. I think he might have more grounds for his argument, and that perhaps might see popular support. But I see how Democrats are reporting and looking at this, I wonder if they even know. I wonder if you're watching CNN, how much you really know. Do they know, for example, and certainly Van Jones doesn't know, that it was a racially motivated attack? The murderer is muttering under his breath as he walks away from the victim. I got the white girl. I got the white girl.
And the Department of Justice is looking into those comments and could probably tack on a hate crime, even if it matters, because the guy's definitely going to get fried in the electric chair, and he should. Winston, good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.
We were referring to Van Jones's recent appearance on CNN, where he criticized Charlie Kirk for claiming this was a racially motivated murder.
But also, I mean, people like Charlie Kirk, Van, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of like reciprocal George Floyd situation.
We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. Hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons. And then for someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him.
But if you watch the video, you can hear clearly that the killer was absolutely doing so out of racial motivation. The video of the horrific murder was published on September 5th, but it was several days before the corporate media and mainstream media like Van Jones even commented on it. Now, you remember, of course, the story of Daniel Penny, or of George Floyd. It took barely moments, not just for the American media, but global media, to immediately put out thousands of articles claiming those were racially motivated murders, without any evidence. Here we have actual evidence, and look how the mainstream media are covering it. The New York Times led with North Carolina ignites a firestorm on the right. Then followed the Wall Street Journal, who ran on page 5, woman's stabbing death becomes MAGA talking point. Or trusted Axios, who went with stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. There was CNN, how the lives of a Ukrainian refugee and a Charlotte man with a criminal history converged in a fatal stabbing, as if it was some sort of Hollywood movie. Even the Ukrainian outlet Kiev Independent ran the headline, how the right wing in US, Europe is weaponizing murders of Ukrainian refugees. Rolling Stone magazine, in their coverage, said that the attack was, quote, apparently random. Why was there media silence? Why was there this spin? Well, clearly this terrible murder in North Carolina goes against progressive ideology. You'll remember with George Floyd, where there was literally no evidence, where Derek Chauvin, the police officer involved, was racist. You remember how immediately across the world there were protests.
The nation erupted into scenes of chaos, violence, and widespread destruction into the early morning hours.
In my country, in Britain, not only were statues being pulled down, but now Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer even took the knee. Football players took the knee for Black Lives Matter, the organisation, for literally years after the incident. As for Black Lives Matter, the organisation, who, it was explicitly clear from their beginning, were anti-Western, anti-capitalist, anti-nuclear family, all of which was written on their website at the time of the BLM riots and protests in 2020. Well, they took to Instagram yesterday and posted this to their 3.2 million followers.
We have a right to violence. All oppressed people have a right to violence. And I'm going to tell you something. It's like the right to pee. You got to have the right place. You got to have the right time. You got to have the appropriate situation. And I'm absolutely convinced that this is it.
It is not just two-tier media that this terrible case has exposed. As I discussed with Jesse Watters, DEI judiciary shows us that there is also a two-tier justice system. But more specifically, it is progressive ideology with regards to how to deal with criminal behavior that has caused serious problems. Even the family of DeCarlos Brown Jr., the suspect, have decried the system, saying if there had been proper justice beforehand, they could have prevented it. Of the really sticky issues that this tragic case exposes in America, actual racial disparity might be one of them, as Will Cain explained on Fox News.
I want to show you the actual truth when it comes to crime. The story is about race. Race. Take a look at the black on white crimes, 385,000 in 2023. The white on black crimes, just under 118,000. You see the comparative numerical difference. But now, here's what the media actually does. They did what our camera operator just began to do a moment ago. I'm going to step out of the way. I'm going to show you literally what the media does with a camera. They zoom in on this number. This number, devoid of context.
The failure of the media, the failure of the justice system, and the failure of the left to talk about this honestly will lead to very possible terrible consequences. As we've seen in Britain, a two-tier system breeds resentment, not just against the system, but against other groups perceived to be treated preferably. After the death of George Floyd back in 2020, we saw rioting, looting, murders, killing up and down America, rioting even across the world. We haven't seen that yet here in America after this terrible killing. However, if there is a failure, not just by the media, not just by the justice system, but by the left more broadly, to talk about these issues properly, to deal with them, there may be consequences even more undesirable emerging from the right.